Good afternoon. Good afternoon, purpose driven entrepreneurs. My name is Kimberly Lechnick, relationship growth strategist. Welcome. Welcome to Intentional Pathways by Design, where we are talking everything relationships, both business and personal. And I am so excited to introduce you to our very, very powerful guest, Dr. James H. Carpenter Barnes. How are you doing today, James?
I'm doing amazing. It's
Excellent.
been a remarkable day. It's been an outstanding day, and it's only going to get better.
Mm. Oh, I agree. And I love it because I was just going to ask you what was making it amazing. So that is fantastic. Well, we love to kind of jump into our quote, and our quote is specifically tailored to each and every one of our guests. So we can kind of really dive in and get to know them on a really deep level. But before we do that, we want to know James, Dr. James H. Carpenter Barnes. We want to know a little bit about who you are and what you do. Can you tell us?
Sure. I'm an author, I'm a public speaker, I'm the host of a couple of shows that are on four streaming networks, Your Spirit Life and Wow Moments from the Well of Wisdom. And I actually just recently launched, well, we didn't recently launch, but we further organized our nonprofit, the You Belong Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that provides social support, resources, information, and recognition to the special needs community. And that was born out of my wife's show, The Windy Life, which is, I think this is her fifth season of doing that show. And so our focus is serving humanity, basically. That's what I do. I serve humanity in different ways. And um, when when we feed a person spiritually, we feed a person physically, we feed them emotionally, all of those are necessary. One by itself is insufficient. You can give someone spiritual advice, but you also need to be able to provide material sustenance or material items that they can utilize in this day-to-day life, even money, because we live in an economic world. So we need a balanced approach when we talk about servanthood. Just telling a person about how amazing your creator is or whatever your belief is, you tell somebody how wonderful it is. Well, don't just tell me by showing me how good they've been to you, but how good you can be to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you do it from a practical perspective. I had a gentleman just yesterday. He was in my studio. He flew in from South Carolina to be interviewed on my wife's show,
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking. And he said, he stopped me. He said, "You know what you do?" I said, "What is that?" He said, "You do practical ministry." And
Mm-hmm.
I said, "You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's outside the four walls of the traditional church, but it's thoroughly within the function and purpose and passion of the body of Christ."
I love it. I love it. And with that being said, this is a perfect segue into our quote. Within each of us is a light, awake, encoded in fibers of our existence. Divine ecstasy is the totality of this marvelous creation experienced in the hearts of humanity. Tony Samara. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. James?
Well, the thing that jumps out at me is divine ecstasy. That is such an interesting phrase because people don't think of a relationship or connection a spiritual connection as being ecstasy. We usually equate ecstasy with sexual or sensual activities, sexual or sensual, because sensual doesn't have to be sexual. And so, but when you really think about it, what is more intimate than connecting with the creator who is in you, around you, beneath you, and above you, supporting you, surrounding you, covering you, providing, giving you every breath, every heartbeat, every friendship, every love relationship, every experience you have is connected to his grace in your life. It's connected to him giving a portion of himself to you, like a husband and a wife giving themselves to each other.
Yes.
And how much better are we when we have the right spouse? How much better, how much more effective are we? And how much sweeter is life in that circumstance? So when I saw divine ecstasy is that place, that quiet place, as we were talking earlier, when you get into that when you're in your meditation and his presence comes in. I don't even like to say his presence. I like to say the presence, because God is neither male nor female. He's not a man that he should lie, neither the son of man that he should repent, but he is a being so far removed from our humanity that we can't put it into language. So all we can do is sometimes just moan, groan, and in gratitude and thanksgiving when his presence shows up, because it can be so real, so tangible, especially when you're in a place of pain, when you're in a place of fear, when you're in a place of a challenge and you don't have a clue how to solve it. But that presence will come and give you the answer, give you the solution. That is divine ecstasy. Because when that answer comes, how good do you feel?
Oh, so good.
Right?
So good. So good. And yeah, so good. So I love your thoughts on this, because I absolutely agree. And I think that's what stood out for me with this quote that we've been blessed with, is that it's so deep. And how can something so deep not be ecstasy? Like,
Yes.
how can it not be? Like, how can it not be? Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. So let's dive in and get to know you a little bit more. Can you, when we're thinking about this idea of consciousness and awakening and peeling back the layers of our onion, can you tell us about an experience that presented you with an opportunity to awaken?
I absolutely can. It was 2008, and I listened to a very powerful lady speak. Her name is Dr. Cindy Trim, and she was speaking at a conference I was attending, and she said something that really, it kind of jerked my head. She said an experiment was done by scientists where they took a very wealthy man and a very poor man, and they put them in an electronic spectrograph, which measures energy that's given off by the human body. We all give off energy. We're primarily energy. We're light and water. That's what we are. And so, but what was interesting was the aura around that poor man was weak and anemic. It was thin, but it was energy. But the very wealthy, prosperous man, his aura was powerful and vibrant and bold. And I said, well, why is that? I mean, and that's when I began to study the relationship between quantum physics and spirituality, quantum physics and the creator. And I studied that from that moment up until now, from 2008 up to 2022, and I began to study and to read. And that this was before this was right when The Secret came out. I'd never read it. I didn't know what it was. People were talking about it. I heard it and didn't hear it. And I realized that what I was studying was some of the same concepts they talked about in The Secret, about the law of attraction. But what they missed was the missing ingredient in the law of attraction is the fact that you must become what you desire to create, what you desire to manifest, what you desire to accomplish. You must first, to successfully do that, you must first become that. If a person's about to get married, they need to become a husband inwardly. They must become a wife inwardly. They must become a parent inwardly before they enter into that arena. Just like a professional athlete, a quarterback that is not a quarterback, he can go out there on that field, line up behind center, and they snap that ball, and somebody's going to snap his neck because he has not become the person that needs to be in that position. And so many people were frustrated because they're doing vision boards, they're meditating, they're doing affirmations, and they're doing this, and they're doing this, and they're doing this, and they're still broke. They're still unhappy. They're still unfulfilled. They're still who they were. They're just going through the motions of spirituality now. They're going through different exercises, but they themselves didn't change. And you know why, Kimberly? Is because they started on the outside. Anything that the Creator does, he starts with the inside first. In the book of Genesis, when the Bible talks about, and God said, let us make man in our image, which that's my belief system. I believe that. Let us make man in our image after our likeness. And the next verse says, he created them, male and female. Well, if he created them here, then over here it says in the next chapter, and God formed man from the dust of the ground. Well, wait a minute. He made a male and female first. So why did that's two different things. No, it's not. Because over here, he created the spirit, the inner man, because God is a spirit. Yes. And they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth, not flesh, not mind, in spirit. So the man and the woman who were unnamed at that time, they were spirit beings, just as the Creator was a spirit being. Then he created bodies. He created the man's body first, and out of the man's body, he created the woman's body. Now, whether that was literal or figurative is irrelevant. The fact that that's the order he did it. And that's a model that we must start on the inside first. And what I do, I've had several people come to me and they say, James, I've been trying to buy a house, and, with COVID, it's tough buying a home. People are upbidding the prices, just ridiculous. So I said, what you need to do, you need to live. You got to get this house from the inside out. You're trying to do it from the outside in. It won't work.
Right.
You must begin in the spirit and create and manifest it, because the things that are made from the things which are unseen, which is spirit. So I would tell them, this is what you need to do. See yourself in your home washing dishes. See yourself in the home hollering at your kids, get your feet off of my couch. Who broke the window? Let the dog out. Get the cat out the washing machine. Who spilled orange juice on the table and left it? Now it's a sticky mess. Who did this? And line them up. And see yourself folding clothes. See yourself making up the bed, taking a shower, making a cake, and it doesn't turn out. It falls. You cook it too long, dinner's ruined, or you have a magnificent dinner. See yourself having Thanksgiving dinner, washing all the dishes and sitting back stuffed and happy, and see yourself in your home doing that. See yourself asleep in that bed. Live in the end result where you are, and it will manifest in your life. And people come back and say, James, I got my house. Lady called me Christmas Day. She came into my office and she was upset, and I told her what to do. It was maybe a month and a half later, she would close the house and was living in it.
Wow.
I could tell you story after story like that we create from the inside out. Even our nation, Kimberly, when the men founded the United States, it was called the New World, but they had never seen a democracy before.
Right.
They came from under a king, a monarchy. So this idea of a democracy was new to them. So you know what they did? They believed they had it in here. They had it in here, the image of what they wanted to create, where all men would be created equal. It didn't start out that way, but we're going to wind up that way. You know, and when it comes from the inside out, they believed it into existence. They believed America in.
Wow.
They believed it in, Kimberly. That's how this nation is the greatest nation on the planet right now, in spite of all of its problems, its issues, the fighting and all of that. Irregardless to all of that, it is still better than the rest of the world.
Absolutely. I agree 100% on that. And I think that if we've learned anything the last couple of years, it's that we really have so many blessings.
Yeah.
You know, and when it comes down to it, you know, just being grateful for the most basic things like our breath and the fact that we have hands to hold things and eyes to see things and ears. These are not privileges. You know, I think that we really need to go back to that basic level, because that's when you can expand out. But I love what you were saying about it's coming from the inside.
Yes.
Right. So when people are trying to get it externally, it's not happening because it doesn't exist inwardly. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? What's funny? People say, man, I can't get a break. Everything goes against me. Every time I turn around, it's one negative thing after another. What you need to do is stop, look within yourself. Stop looking around you and blaming. Look within you and get the junk out your heart, because out of the heart are the issues of life. Not out of your circumstances, not out of your boss, not out of your neighbor, but it's what comes out of you is what you create. Let me tell you what I did, Kimberly. Let me tell you what I did. When I started this study about in 2008, I bought a notebook and I cut pictures out of a magazine and stuck to pick the kind of clothes I wanted, kind of house I wanted. I wanted a Bentley and a Lexus truck. All right. And I had the house I wanted and everything, had to put it in the book. Those things that I put, the only thing I didn't get was an airplane yet. But everything else has happened better than what I imagined. Because on my block is the very same house that I pictured in my book down the street, but my house is bigger than that house.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yes. Yes.
You know what? As you're talking about these external things, these possessions, the material, wow, would that be wonderful when I think of some of the projects that I'm involved in and creating? If that manifestation could, you know, manifest, you know, when I think of manifesting this tiny home sustainable community in the city of Chicago, wow, I'd love to manifest that every single day.
See it. See yourself see yourself painting the tiny houses. See yourself hammering a nail in the tiny house. See yourself bending down to walk through the door. You know, see the looks on the faces, and even envision the conversations that you would have with the people that live in the tiny houses. I mean, literally, hold the conversation. That was a couple, a husband and a wife. He was a physician and she was his secretary. They wanted to build a 2-unit building on the property where their office was, their medical practice. But they didn't want to spend none of their savings to do it. They began to meditate on it and envision, not visualize. Visualization takes in the external and pulls it in. Envisioning reaches inside. Envisioning reaches inside and sends out the energy for the things you desire to come into you. That's the difference. So when you hear people talk about visualization, know that they're talking from the outside in. Right? So they envision this, and make a long story short, a man walked into their office and said, you know, I was wondering, why isn't there a building, an apartment building on that corner? It's a perfect location. The wife said, well, we've longed to do that, but we just don't have the money. But that's been our desire. That's been our vision, to build an apartment building. He said, really? He says, well, he's one of the top builders in their town. Walked into their office. He said, I don't know why I'm here. I don't come see people. People come to me. He said, I'll be back. So he came back. He says, listen, I have an architect. He has some plans from another structure that would work for that. We just need to, you know, make a few changes here and there and pay him a little fee. He won't even charge us for the full cost of the plans. They said, wow, well, that's great. And so, but we don't have any money for that. He said, oh, wait, I'll pay for the plans. He went out and got financing. He got the construction loan to build. Okay, we need this amount of money from him. He said, well, we don't have it. He said, that's okay, I'll pay for it. So the builder paid for the down payment for the construction loan.
Oh my.
And then they closed on what they call an in loan, because I used to do mortgages. There's a construction loan, and then there's the in loan to, you know, carry the thing forward. Well, he said, well, I'm going to do that too, and you can pay me back out of the rents. So they got the building built according to their specs, according to their vision, according to what they said they wanted to do, not what the circumstances said. I have a teaching that came to me this morning as I'm driving. It said, stop looking at what you see and start seeing what you see. In other words, stop looking at your circumstances and see what's within you so you can see it. There was a song that said, say what you heard, what the thing you envisioned, the word that came to you, say what you heard so you can see what you said. Say what you heard so you can see what you said.
Manifestation. Inside out. Oh my gosh. Now I can see, yeah, like, okay. Oh my goodness. Well, we need to get back to you here though. So let's get back to that moment where you awakened.
Well, when I began to study and I saw, I had papers this thick. I still have them on quantum physics. And I read it, I studied and I read. And for years, I read the Bible, studied the Bible, but I read it from 3 dimensions. And when I say that, the book of Ephesians says that God's love, it has height, it has breadth, it has width, and it also has depth. That word depth in the Greek is profundity. how profound it is. I began to see the word, the scriptures, both Old and New Testaments, because I'm a big fan of the Torah, because there are so many powerful principles of wealth and the ways of life and the way our Creator would have us to live our lives as a community, supporting each other, and just like you and I, we have a friendship, we have a common denominator that binds us, and that is our community that we share. And the common denominator is service to humanity.
Yes.
Nothing else matters. If you're not here, my question is, what did you come here for? What are you here for? If you're not here to serve, what are you here for?
Right. Right. But, we also want to accept, I think it's important to accept where everyone is, because I think in a world of lights where there's a lot of us that do see and have uncovered our lights, but there are some individuals that haven't necessarily uncovered their light. And I see that a lot in the 40s and the 50s, where individuals are starting to move away from corporate and they're wanting to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
They're wanting to give away all their possessions and just go on the road. You've got situations like we saw in Eat, Pray, Love, where she was really trying to find herself and trying to kind of uncover the meaning of life. But when you were in that moment of awakening, studying quantum physics and really doing a deep dive into the word, can you help us understand, what did you do with this opportunity? And how did that opportunity of being graced with your purpose, how is that impacting your current experience?
Well, what it did was it freed me from religion. I was bound because I didn't know anything else. See, when my life was changed, when I had my born again experience, so to speak, prior to that, I was a musician. I was selling drugs. I was doing drugs. I lived a very hedonistic based life. Everything I did was for pleasure. Everything about me was about that. So when the change came and I was introduced to this magnificent creator who was not what I'd heard other people talk about. So much more immeasurable is the word. Immeasurable. And as I began to see this, my imagination began to open up. And I began to imagine all of the possibilities of life. And in my mind, I began to understand there's nothing I can't do. There's nothing I can't have. That's how God made us. And I began to understand why I couldn't be satisfied. Now, before I was insatiable in a sensual, selfish way, but now I'm insatiable with a mindset of selfless service for others, as well as enjoying the gift of life that I have on this plane, because after this life, there's a greater responsibility that those of us who've prepared for it, we will move into. Others who have not prepared themselves are going to be in for a big surprise. They're going to find that there's so much more they need, so much growing and learning that they still need to do. I believe we'll learn into eternity. We'll always be ever learning, ever growing, ever increasing. But that's what it did for me. It took me from serving myself, and it took a while. It took a while. It was a long journey. I felt like the children of Israel wandering through the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's been 40 years. It was 40 years ago. I'll be 68 years old this year. And I am more excited and I'm doing more now than I did when I was born again at 27.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't make sense, but it makes perfect sense that it doesn't make sense because everything that the Creator does not make sense in the mind of man.
Right.
But it makes perfect sense in the plan of God, God's plan for man. So it brought me from selfishness to service.
Mm. That's, yeah, I love it. And isn't it so true that we become wiser the more we age, right?
Yes.
We
Well, we
become,
should.
yes, and matured, right?
Yeah.
We're so much wiser, and it's exactly as it should have been, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I reflect back on my experience, I reflect back on it and I say, you know what? It was exactly the way it should have been. There's
Yes.
not one single moment that, I would like to go back and change because it brought me to this place. And this is the place that, I'm so grateful for. I'm so
Oh
grateful
yeah.
for this moment.
I'm living. I thought 2020 was an amazing year for me. It was one of the best years I had as far as finances go. But I gotta say, 2022 has been pretty good. you know? And so it seems like every year it gets better and better. And it reminds me of the scripture that says, thy latter end shall be greater than the former. And that's what I'm seeing in my life. At the point where I thought I'd be late, sitting back with my feet up, drinking lemonade on the porch, watching the cars go by and thinking about the days that were. And now I'm I'm connected with a young group of people that are way smarter than I am, and I'm running to keep up because technology is just and I'm trying to keep up, Kimberly.
Oh my gosh. So, what advice can you share with everyone today on how they can begin their journeys to kind of sweep away those cobwebs and find their light?
I would say take the beginning of your day, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, and give it intentionally. Not because, well, I don't have nothing else to do, but if you have to get up at 5 o'clock, get up at 10 minutes to 5, give that 10 minutes for you, for your spiritual health, and just learn to meditate, spend time in prayer, communicating, learn to communicate with your creator because he desires to communicate with each of us. Because I don't know, I'm not going to tell you I'm smart enough to know how he's able to communicate with me the same time he's talking to you, Kimberly.
Yeah.
How can he do that?
Right.
But he does it. And then other people, other millions of people, he's able to communicate with us. He desires that. He craves it. And as we as human beings, that is a third of our spiritual makeup because the spirit of man consists of intuition, conscience, and worship. Intuition, which is things, but you don't know how you know them. Your spirit also tells you conscience. Your conscience, hey, that's wrong. Don't do that. Even if nobody told you, you know it's wrong.
Right.
And the third is worship. They that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So the area of worship, we seek to worship something. Even people who are atheists, they believe in something, even if I don't believe in that. Well, you don't believe in that is your religion.
Mm-hmm.
You believe that you don't believe.
Right.
You still believe in something.
That's a
It's
belief.
in us. It is.
Yep.
And so as you begin to do that, things will start to happen in your life. And you'll start to see meeting different people, different conversations, people treating you differently, responding to you differently because your energy has changed.
Mm-hmm.
If you carry negativity, you're going to receive negativity. It's going to come across in your eyes and your visage, in your very posture. You'll be a very unpleasant person to be around.
Right. Absolutely.
You can reverse
Absolutely.
it. You can reverse it by taking that time, spending that time, and allowing his presence to become a part of you.
Mm. Oh
That's
my
where it
goodness.
starts.
Whew. So, with that being said, do you have any last moment or minute things or shares that you would like to share with everyone before we kind of wrap everything up?
Yeah, I would say this, especially to you, when as far as your vision, because you have a tremendous servant's heart. I know that it's evident. I sense it. I know that about you. And the things you desire to do, and anyone that hears my words, when you get ready to go to sleep at night, right before you drop off to sleep, take some time to lay quietly and see the things you desire to manifest.
Mm.
No matter how insignificant and unspiritual you may think it is, every single thing that matters to you matters to the Creator.
Mm.
Every single thing, be it a nonprofit organization or a pair of socks that you saw, or a pair of shoes, or a piece of jewelry, a ring, a meal, something you desire that may seem silly, but it's important to you. How do you feel when you give a gift to your child that has been just a wonderful kid to you, just marvelous, and they want this little whatever it is? And how good do you feel when you give them that? And how good do they feel to receive it? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It was not a coincidence that the scriptures refer to the creator as Father.
Mm. Oh my goodness. When you were saying that, I was really feeling, I don't know if I shared with you, and we can talk about this another time too, but there was a series of moments that I experienced. And now that I'm in the place that I'm at, it's those moments that I was speaking out that brought me here to this place to want to gather together these individuals and their lights, their gifts, and build this community. So when you were talking about, our creator speaking to us and moving through us, yeah, he's saying like, this is in essence what I want you to do. This
Yes.
is what I believe you can do it.
Yeah.
I know you can do it.
Oh
I know
yeah.
you can gather these
Actually,
people together.
actually, it's already done.
Mm-hmm.
All you got to do is walk in it, because if you don't do it, he will move you and put somebody else in place, because he's already created it. That's why the desire is in you
Yeah.
to do it. All
Right.
you need to do is just begin to see it, feed your subconscious, and your subconscious will draw people to you to help you accomplish that thing.
It's happening, James. It's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's happening.
it's
And
a principle, but we don't have time for that. But it's a powerful principle.
we don't. But oh my goodness, this was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your gifts and helping the purpose-driven entrepreneur really become more rooted in who they are so they can move forward with their purpose. Thank you so
Yes.
much, James.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's been a joy. And I pray all the best, the most excellent and opulent favor and blessing be upon you and every work that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Okay. God bless.